Welcome to the Learning Lab Instructor Edition. This is your safe space to ask questions about your teaching practice. We can talk about the National Mahjong League rules. We can talk about teaching practice operations. We can also talk about skills, strategies, and sportsmanship. Whatever you'd like to talk about, that is what we're here for. I do pick out a topic for today or for each episode. So we'll dig into a topic and then we'll open it up to Q&A afterwards on either the topic or whatever you'd like to discuss. Maybe even get a little advice, time permitting. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing about MAHJLIFE. And also I want to give a shout out to our moderators. Thank you for helping monitor the chat today. And also, if you are not aware, I lead the MAHJLIFE Instructor Guild. This is a community of Mahjong instructors, aspiring and experienced or active and everywhere in between, not-for-profit, for-profit. We even have some that are nonprofits. So if you would like to get ongoing education, resources, continuing education and peer support, consider joining the MAHJLIFE Instructor Guild. You can probably find a link for that in the video description below. All right, so let's welcome everybody here. Hello, Dana, welcome. Say hi in the live stream chat if you like. I was just looking at our topic for today, which is on lesson planning. I'm going to share a concept that I think would be really helpful for any instructor. Now, this is a concept that would apply after fundamentals. So this would be for follow-up lessons or add-on lessons, maybe intermediate advanced lessons, because when you teach American Mahjong, there's a lot of fundamentals to cover, including game mechanics and things like that. So this particular method won't work for fundamentals. It's intended for after people already know how to play the game. So things like skill building, strategy application, and things like that. So I know I learned about this from somewhere and I forgot to write down where I learned about it. And so I tried to do a quick Google search on it and I'm having trouble finding it. So I'm going to have to update it retroactively. So I did not come up with this. I found it somewhere and I will try my best to always provide the source for where I've heard about different teaching methods that I'll be sharing going forward. So let me just ask if everyone here is either an aspiring instructor or a current instructor. Maybe you could write A for aspiring, meaning you're just getting started or you haven't even gotten started yet. And then if you're a current instructor, put a C in the chat. So A for aspiring, C for current. Put that in the live stream chat so I know what level of experience we have here. Oh, thank you, Dana. And I also want to show you, I don't remember if I shared this before, but we have I'm building this resource with all of the show notes for these episodes. And I want to show you how to access that content. I'll show that to you at the end of this video. And please remind me, moderators, if I forget, remind me to show or demonstrate how to access this wiki style repository for all the show notes for these episodes. Okay, aspiring with a few students. All right, excellent. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Actually, I forgot. I'm not going to share my screen. I don't share my screen in these. We talk. So let me go to my notes. No presentations. I'm so used to doing a presentation. I'm trying to move away from presentations. Some people find them very boring. So instead, we're going to talk. All right, so here we go. The first thing that I want to ask is, what part of lesson planning feels hardest? Could it be maybe clarity, pacing, adapting? So once you've got your lesson plan, is it taking your plan and putting it into practice? It's the hard part. What is the hardest part for you with lesson planning? Is it actually doing the planning? What is the hardest part for you? What part feels the hardest with lesson planning? I've been doing it for so long. I don't find it hard at all. But there are, sometimes I hear crickets when it comes to ideas, but I have a solution for that. So part of lesson planning is coming up with ideas, brainstorming, coming up with new ideas, new ways to engage with students. Okay, Dana says putting it into practice and adapting to students. Okay, live adaptation. So when you have your lesson plan and you get in front of the students and maybe needing to modify on the fly based on who's in your class, this topic that we go over today is going to help with that, I think. So anybody else want to share what's hard for them? Okay, excellent. Okay, here's another question for you. Have you ever had to toss a lesson plan mid-lesson? I have had to do this online. And I had to go back and edit the title of the video because I planned on talking about one thing, but the needs of the viewers at the time wanted to talk about something else. So I had to ditch the topic and just change on the fly and cover a topic that wasn't part of the plan. That can be a little bit of a challenge, but if you get used to it, you won't get flustered. It's just a matter of having a bank of like a topic list or a catalog of lessons that you can go to, that you know by heart, that you could jump to based on the needs of the group. I think that would be my lesson learned, is to have a catalog of lessons. Don't just remember, oh, I did this once, I did that once. Actually having a catalog, a digital catalog that you can keep and keep current, keep up to date, and make it searchable so that you can go back to it and pull out some of your favorites or maybe tweak some that didn't quite hit the target. Dana says once you need the need of the students went back to review and deeper. Oh, excellent. Excellent footwork, Dana. Okay, Anne says, how do you handle a class that's too large? Oh, that's a good question, and I have a solution for you. Now, large is, can you quantify large? What did you plan for, and what did you end up with? So quantify large for us. And then I'd be happy to answer that question. And then we'll get to the last question here before we start talking about this solution. Okay, Anne maybe stepped away or something. We'll come back to her question. Oh, there, 27 students. And what did you plan for? You had 27 students. What did you plan for? Yeah, that's a big class, but there's a solution. There's a couple. You expected 4 or 5 people and you ended up with 27. Wow, that is quite a difference. I'd like to know how that happened. I'd love to hear your lessons learned on this. Okay, so the first thing that I would recommend is, let's see, the The first thing that I would recommend is using the buddy system. And you've got to frame it, though, in the beginning of the class. So as all these people are filing in and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Here are all these people, and I only planned on teaching, you know, maybe 2 tables. And now here we have, let's see, would that be 8? No, yeah, no, wait, 27, 7 tables. So you're going from 2 tables to 7 tables. So what you would do is you would say, of course, welcome everybody, and just say, due to the overwhelming response to the class, we have more here or we have a lot of students today. So we're going to use a concept to condense the class so that you can learn let's see, what word am I looking for? You can learn more with this concept, and it will also be easier for me, the instructor, to teach this number of people. Just to kind of frame it. Try not to frame it so that it sounds like there was a mistake. You don't want to apologize. Don't apologize, because you've got to work on the fly sometimes, and there's no need to apologize. So just frame it that you're going to use a concept called the buddy system, and you have everybody find a partner, and you say, today we are going to work in teams. There's going to be teamwork. You can learn exponentially more with in teams than you can individually, because you have, instead of just 4 people at the table, you're going to have 8 people at the table. And everybody has different questions. Everybody learns differently. Everybody thinks differently. So with all those questions, everybody has more opportunities to learn from one another. So that was the word I was looking for, exponentially. So you're going to use the buddy system, and that will condense the class by half. So instead of teaching to 7 tables, you're going to be able to bring it down to, I guess that would be 4 tables. Let's see, because you would have, let's see, 27. Let me pull up my calculator. 27 divided by 4, that's 7 tables. So yes, I was right. And 1 table is going to have 3 players, and that's okay. You could do a few things with that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you're going to have 4 tables instead of 7 tables. So that's going to be a lot easier to manage. And you're by yourself, right? So this is going to be I cannot imagine what was going through your mind. And I would love to hear what you did in that class. So, and also, was this a fundamentals class? Was this open play? Or was this an intermediate class? What kind of a class was it? Because that does matter as well. If this is all people who don't know the game, then that is a huge challenge. And there should definitely be some lessons learned so that doesn't repeat. Because as you know, this is a complex game. And when you're teaching more than 2 tables, how to do the fundamentals, that's more than one person can manage. You definitely should have an additional instructor for every 2 tables. Even if you use the buddy system, that's fine. 1 instructor for every 2 tables is what I highly recommend. So tell us what kind of class was this? If this was gameplay with coaching, then that is manageable. But if this was for fundamentals, I bet that was a really tough class. But you can do it. You just got to take it slow. So what I would recommend, if this were to repeat, or if somebody stumbles into this kind of a situation, is you say before you start, and of course this depends on what you promised for the class, but you would say, due to the overwhelming response to the class, we have more students than we anticipated. So we're going to modify the outcome for you today. I'm going to teach you enough of the game so that you have an idea of what it's like to play. You're going to learn how to play. Later, you can come to another lesson and learn how to win. So you're not going to cover any strategy at all. You're just going to go over the fundamentals of the game, how to set it up, how to deal the tiles, pick and, do the Charleston, and how to pick and discard, how to claim a discard, make an exposure, and how to declare Mahjong. That's it. Everything else can wait for follow-up sessions. Okay, let's see. You did elicit help from a few players. Oh, okay. Fellow players. Okay. All 27 were new. So this was a fundamentals class where nobody knew how to play the game. That's a huge challenge. So that's how I would do it. And so was this a one-time introduction class, or was this a multi-session, the first of a multi-session class? And also, how long was the session? Because what you could also do, if it is a multi-session lesson, and let's say a 2 or 3 hour lesson, you could say, today we're going to focus on this, and make it easy for yourself and just cover part of the game, like maybe introducing the tiles, introduce what is a pair pung kong, introduce how to build a hand. So maybe have an introduction of the card itself and how to cipher it with all the different colors, letters, and numbers, and then have them build hands. And that would be the lesson. And then in the next lesson, you would go into how to set up the game, how to do dealing, how to do the Charleston, and how to pick and discard. And then maybe the third and fourth session, you could do gameplay with coaching. So you can, on the fly, modify the lesson plan based on your ability to serve the people who are there, simplify or minimize the number of activities in your lesson plan that was actually planned for that day, and modify it, and then address how you're going to handle the changes in your subsequent lessons thereafter. So rework your lesson plan so that you can still deliver the outcome that you promised. It was 2 5-hour sessions. Wow. Wait, 2.5. It was one of 6 2.5-hour sessions. Okay, got it. So yes, for that situation, what I would have done is I would have reframed the session. And due to the overwhelming response to the class, that you're really happy everyone was there, of course, be positive, and then modify what you're delivering for that session and minimize it. Make it as few activities as possible to match what you can deliver to those students by yourself. Or if you pulled students who already knew how to play from among them, utilize them and then modify accordingly. And then whatever you did not cover that you planned to cover, work into the next session and do the same with the next 5 sessions so that you're able to deliver the outcome that you promised. So that's how I would have handled it. So what was the outcome for you? What did you do in that first session? And what happened subsequently? Were you able to recover? That needs a write-up. That needs a white paper. That is fantastic. I would love to work with you on a white paper for that situation, because I think a lot of people could be helped with that situation, your lessons learned, and what to do if this happens in the future. That would be a really nice white paper. If you'd like to work with me on that, please send me an email. You can find my email in the video description below. I'd be happy to work with you, and we could maybe come up with another session like this to go over that and create a show notes on it so that people can learn from what you went through. Okay, so I would love to hear what you did to adjust, if anything, or did you just stick with your actual plan and just power through? Or did you modify on the fly? Okay, we'll circle back. We will circle back to that. Okay, so now talking about lesson planning essentials. The next question, so we asked, what part of lesson planning feels hardest? Is it clarity, pacing, adapting to real time? The next question was, have you ever had to toss a plan mid-lesson? If you did, what did you learn from that experience? It's kind of like what we're talking about here. And then another is, actually, you know what? Oh, well, this might be a good question for after. I'm going to save this one. This is not actually a question. This is more of a reflection. So I'm going to save this and we'll circle back to that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the, let's see here. Let me pull this up for myself here. And again, everything that we talk about is going to be in the show notes. So I will have a link to this in the video description afterwards so that you can look at it later. We're going to talk about the four-corner plan. Four-corner plan. The idea here is that you want to have a session where you're not giving so much content that you're overwhelming your students, because you're going to see deer in the headlights looks on their faces. A lot of times if you give too much information, they're going to walk away with very little unless they've trained themselves to pick a jewel of knowledge. I've been trained over the years, whenever I go to some kind of a talk or class, workshop, what have you, to find a single jewel of knowledge and take it away with me. If someone is not trained to do that, people could walk away empty-handed and just overwhelmed. So instead of just giving them the kitchen, everything in the kitchen sink, you want to make sure that you are giving them information in a way that they will walk away with something actionable. Okay, so let me just read this. Teaching beyond a single session means shifting from short-term instruction to long-term development. Multi-session courses allow you to build knowledge step by step, reinforce key concepts and repetition, or through repetition, and introduce advanced skills at a manageable pace. The goal isn't to teach more, it's to teach deeper. With clear progression, students see how each lesson connects to the next, strengthening confidence and comprehension over time. So this would not be a single session concept, it would be a multi-session, and that depends on the program that you're offering. So when you're thinking about this four-corner plan, which we'll talk about in a minute, you want to think about 5 things, 5 steps as you're developing this four-corner plan. First is clarity creates confidence. A well-structured plan helps you stay focused, reduces overwhelm, and supports student learning. So it can also be a great record for yourself, kind of like I was talking about early on about having a catalog of lessons so that you can go back to it, especially ones that work really well for you. Kind of keep it curated so that it is all proven to work for you with good results. So if you have a lesson plan that maybe wasn't quite so stellar, just remove it or revamp it and then add it back to your catalog. Always have a defined goal, a defined outcome for whatever lesson or program you're offering. Each session should have one clear takeaway. That would be that jewel of knowledge. What students should know or be able to do by the end of each session. So you got to plan that out. If you have, let's say you have 6 sessions, you want to make sure that you have 6 takeaways. Now, some of those sessions could be review. So let's say you do 4 takeaways for a 6-session program, and 2 of those sessions are review, or maybe 2 are play with coaching. So you don't have to do an outcome or a promise or a jewel of knowledge for every single session. So plan it out, and just remember that it's not about the quantity of content that you deliver, it's the quality of your lesson plan, your outcomes that you're promising. That is where people are going to receive value and where they're going to see transformation when they leave your lessons. Also, you want to plan with pacing in mind. Include transitions, breaks, and buffer time. Buffer time would be if something happens that derails your plan. One time I had a lesson where we were at a JCC and the cafeteria was all the way at the end of the building, and we took a 5-minute break, and 2 of the players went all the way down to the end of that thing to get some coffee, and it ended up being a 15-minute break. And 10 minutes is huge in a 2-hour lesson. So sometimes you have to punt, you have to modify some things, but if you build in a buffer, then you wouldn't have to do that. So think about buffer times, maybe 5 minutes in a 2-hour session, let's say. You would be able to kind of do some wiggle room there. Avoid trying to teach too much in one session. Make sure that you're pacing each session. Also, flexibility is a skill. Be ready to adjust when questions or teachable moments arise without losing the overall direction. One great thing here is if something comes up that derails the lesson plan or could derail the lesson plan, use a parking lot. Basically, what you do is use a whiteboard or a blackboard, and you would take that question or topic and put it on that board for later. It's called a parking lot, or I call it whiteboard it, whatever term you want to use, but it's been known to be called a parking lot. So you can park the concept, park the topic for either review at the end of the session, or you could collect those topics and do in maybe your last session, or have an ongoing list of what you're going to be covering in future sessions. So for example, let's say someone asks about Charleston strategy, some kind of a strategy during the Charleston, and that's way later, maybe your 3rd of 6 sessions that you were going to do Charleston strategy. You could put whatever that question was on the parking lot and say, we're going to cover this in session 3. Leave it up there until you get to session 3 and then check it off. So whiteboard it or use that parking lot idea if you ever get a question that is off topic. Also, use anchors, not scripts. Think of your plan as a framework. Let it be your roadmap. And then, or kind of like your anchor points or waypoints, I guess you could say. And they'll keep you going through your plan so that you get to those outcomes that you promise. You've got your lesson plans with the outcomes, and the lesson plan, each milestone that you have on there is a waypoint, and you got to hit those waypoints in order to deliver what you promised. So you don't use it as a script, use it as like a roadmap. So clarity creates confidence. Define a goal, plan with pacing in mind, flexibility is a skill, and then use anchors, not scripts. And that way too, if you use anchors and not scripts, you can modify on the fly as well and be a little more flexible. So when you get to the actual planning of your topic, you want to have some kind of a warm-up. Then you want to focus on either a new concept, skill, or strategy. And then you want to have some kind of activity where you can have the players apply whatever it is that you're focused on. And then you have a reflection. Those are the 4 corners: warm up, focus, skill, application, and reflection. Those are the 4. So when you create your program, that is your framework, the 4-corner plan: warm up, focus, skill, application, reflection. So the warm-up in the first session, of course, is going to be your framing, where you frame the lesson. Here's what you can expect. here's what you can expect from each session. And now if you have a syllabus, that will be a little bit of guidance for them or to know what to expect, but you want to go through that if you've created a syllabus. If you don't have a syllabus that you use for your sessions, I highly recommend that you do. So for the first session, you frame it, but for all the following sessions, you're going to do the warm-up. So the first session would be framing, the next ones would be warm-up. That would be corner one. Then focus skill, teach or revisit a single concept, skill, strategy, whatever the focus is. Just one. Now you could have multiple points supporting that one concept. Like for example, if I'm doing hand development, and I offer my top 3 tactics. My top 3 tactics are optimize, maximize, streamline. So those are 3 different tactics, but it's one concept, hand development. So that skill would be hand development. And then you can have multiple discussion points or multiple topics or multiple tactics, what have you, to support that umbrella topic. So one skill, one topic. Then some kind of an activity for them to apply what they learn, whether it be Charleston modeling, whether it be a worksheet, whether it be working in teams to create hands, any kind of an activity where they're thinking it through, where they're applying it. And then you end with a reflection where you review, do a Q&A, ask things like, what was easy for you? What was hard for you? And how are you going to take what you learned and incorporate it into your playing style? Or what one jewel of knowledge are you going to take with you and put into action? So that would be reflection. All right, any questions about the 4-corner plan? Warm up, focus skill, application, reflection. That's a framework. This is not a lesson plan. It's basically a framework. I'm going to rename this the 4-corner framework, because within this framework is the planning, because the planning, actual lesson planning would come in with each one of these as a module, basically. So the warm up, you would do a little bit of planning within each one of these. I guess this would be a lesson plan. A 4 module lesson plan, warm up, focus skill, application, reflection. I suppose that could be 4 modules, and then you would have activities within each one. This is a fantastic model because you've got the opening, you've got where you're delivering new information, you're giving them the activity to apply it, and then you're doing an assessment or a reflection space where you can make sure they get it. That's a full cycle of learning right there. So this 4-corner framework, I do like it as a framework. So let me know what your thoughts are about this. And I'm going to, next, because we have time, I do have 3 examples where I have on here an outcome. But what I want to do in here is add what you can do for warm up, what you can do for the focus, what you can do for the application and the reflection for each one of these examples. So I will do that between now and when you come back to this and look at it so that you can see these 3 examples. Maybe we could actually do this on the fly because we do have time. We have like 25 minutes. So let me get this ready and we'll do this together. We'll do a little bit of lesson planning together. And I could even show you how I do lesson planning. Does that sound good to you? Stick around if you'd like to do this on the fly with me. Okay, so what we have here, I guess I could go ahead and share my screen. Okay, let me share my screen. We're going to work right in this wiki article here. Okay. Oops. All right. Oh my goodness. All right, so here's the wiki article in edit mode, okay? This is what you're gonna come to later. Here's our questions at the beginning that we talked about to kind of prepare you, get your mind onto the topic that we're gonna be discussing. Here were the talking points. Clarity creates confidence, define your goal, plan with pacing in mind, flexibility is a skill, and use anchors, not scripts. Now here is the four-corner framework. That's what we're going to call it, four-corner framework. Warm up, focus, application, reflection. Okay, so now I'm going to remove that because it's more than just skills that we talk about. A single concept, skill, or strategy. Okay, so now that's good. Okay, so now capture insights and common challenges. Ask, what felt easy for you, comma, what felt hard for you? Because this way, this is a good way to do a review, because things that were easy, clearly you can move past. The things that were hard, if you get someone saying something was hard for them, that's where you need to do a review. So ask, what felt easy for you? What felt hard for you? And what jewel of knowledge, or what's your takeaway? We'll make it easy. What's your top takeaway? Okay, what's your top takeaway? Okay, so those I think are good here for the reflection. Capture insights or common challenges by asking, what felt easy for you? What felt hard for you? And what's your top, end with what's your top takeaway? There. Okay. All right, so good. Now here we go, down to these examples. We have the topic of the Charleston. So what we need here, and I'll clean this up as we go, we need the warm-up. Okay, there's going to be our warm-up, TBD. I use TBD, and then what I do is I kind of frame it out, and then I search for TBD as I go. Wherever I have a TBD, that's where I need to focus next. So if I have to walk away, I'll just come back and search for TBD. So we need a warm-up, and we'll circle back to that. And then we need a focus. And we have, TBD. Okay, so this is what it's like to edit a wiki article. It's awkward. Okay, and then we have application. And then we have reflection. And the reflection is easy because we know what we're going to ask. What felt easy? You could just make it a standard. What felt easy? What felt hard? And with what's your top takeaway? So there's our plan right there, okay? Now, when you have your topic, identify a topic first. I'm going to differentiate this here. Okay, topic the Charleston. the first thing you want to do is create an outcome. By the end of this lesson, students will confidently perform all 3 passes of the Charleston and identify one personal tip that helps them decide what to pass. So we're going to put this outcome right under the topic, because that's the first thing you should do. Because once you have your topic, then you can come up with ideas for how you're going to deliver or not. Once you have the topic, you then define the outcome. Once you have the outcome, then you can basically backwards engineer it and ask yourself, what are the steps I'm going to take to deliver that outcome? So we have a warm-up. So now this clearly is for people who already know how to play, because you're not introducing the Charleston for the first time. They already know how to do it. We just want them to gain confidence in doing it. And we want them to walk away with one tip that helps them decide what to pass. So this is about the first thing that has to happen would be they got to identify the strength of the hand. So because how would you know what to pass until you know what you're going to focus on? So I would say a good warm-up would be what I call random pulls. And I will link to Skill Builder. I'll link this to the Skill Builder that explains how to do it. Basically, random pulls is when you get 13 tiles and the player looks at those tiles, random tiles, and you teach them how to identify the strength of the hand. The strength of the hand for American Mahjong is going to be one of 2 things. Either a predominant pattern, where you use most of your tiles for a given hand category on the card, or it's going to be targeting multiples and then keeping most of your tiles for a given category on the card. Targeting multiples is it's optimizing hand development, because you got to have multiples in the end. So random pulls to identify the strength of the hand, to practice identifying the strength and GTA of the hand. Okay, now what you would want to do is I don't know if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, but if you're going to turn this, if you train yourself to start with a verb or start with a consistent formula, or use a consistent formula with the way that you do your lesson planning, it's going to make it easy to use this content to create your syllabus, and then your marketing, and then your actual lesson plan for your roadmap. So I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT to help you with this process. So this could be, let's see, this would be analyze, or let's say assess. Let's see, how should we do this? I guess analyze. This is a higher thinking verb though, but we'll see. Analyze the random pull. Analyze a random pull to practice identifying the strength of the hand. So we started it with a verb. So we'll circle back to that. Okay, next is going to be the focus. The focus is going to be on discard planning. Even though we're in the Charleston, those passes are discards. So the focus is discard planning. That's our focus for this, the Charleston. Discard planning is the focus. The warm-up is analyze a random pull to practice identifying the strength of the hand. The focus is discard planning to facilitate defensive or offensive and defensive passing. Okay, offensive there. Discard planning to facilitate offensive because you want to build your hand, but also be defensive in your passes, what you're giving away. Okay, now the application, basically what activity are you going to have them do in order to apply what you're teaching them with discard planning? Facilitating offenses and defensive passing. So what activity could we do here? Charleston modeling. Charleston modeling. So this one will be I will just say do Charleston modeling, do a Charleston modeling exercise. I always spell this wrong. I always spell this wrong. Exercise. How do you spell exercise? Exercise. There. Is that not right? Okay, we'll come back to it. Okay, do a Charleston modeling exercise. Okay, my OCD is hurting me. There, I did it. No, I didn't do it. Okay, do a Charleston modeling exercise. And this also is going to be linked to insert to skill builder, because this is another skill builder, which is already documented. Do Charleston modeling exercise to practice decision making. Okay, so there we go there. And then we have our reflection. Okay, so here we go. We've got the Charleston. The outcome is by the end of this lesson, students will confidently perform all 3 passes of the Charleston and identify one personal tip that helps them decide what to pass. The warm-up is analyze a random pull to practice identifying the strength of the hand. The focus is discard planning to facilitate offensive and defensive passing. And the application is do a Charleston modeling exercise to practice decision making. And you would do this, so like the warm-up would be one player at a time. This is how I would do it anyway. One player at a time where everybody's observing and opining. So one person, let's say me, Michelle, I'm going to have a random pull open on my rack up so everybody can see it. I'm going to organize my tiles. And then as the instructor, I'm going to say, okay, Michelle, what do you see in these tiles? What stands out to you? And I'm going to look at those tiles and I'm going to say, well, I have all single tiles here. There's no pairs or anything. And I have no jokers or flowers. So then as the instructor, I would say, okay, well, let's identify the predominant pattern. What would be a category you could focus on with most of your tiles? So kind of coach them to find the solution. And then they're going to say, okay, let's do winds and dragons. Maybe you have a lot of winds and dragons. We're going to do winds and dragons. Okay, take all the tiles you're not going to use and put them to the right. And those would be your discards. So you're focused on your hand first. That's offense. Your discards are going to drive your defensive decision making. So of those unneeded tiles, what would make the most benign pass possible to your opponent? And have them find those tiles and then coach them to improve it if need be. And then they would get an incoming pass from your mock Charleston. And then you would continue that process and coach them along the way. Let them find the answer. So you would prompt them with questions so that they themselves find the answer. That's how you coach through Charleston modeling or the game overall. Okay, so that's how the application would work. And then in the end, you do the reflection. So now, here's what we could do. We can go to ChatGPT. Let's go to Chat GPT here. And we're going to do a new chat. And we're going to call this lesson planning. Okay. And I'm going to ask them, help me create, let's see, let me make this bigger. Okay, help me create a framework, or help me improve this framework using Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, and then you're going to go over here and you're going to copy what you documented right here. You're just going to, so you put this together. This is your content. Okay, you're not using Chat GPT to plagiarize somebody else's work from the internet. You're starting with the content. This is your brain work, okay? Chat GPT is not, you use Chat GPT as an assistant, basically. This is your lesson planning assistant here. So here we have the topic, the outcome, the warm-up, and the focus, then the application. So let's see what Chat GPT does with this. Okay, here's an enhanced version of your Charleston lesson framework written through the lens of Bloom's taxonomy, ensuring that each stage initially builds cognitive complexity from understanding to application and reflection. That's that beauty of the four-corner framework. They've aligned each segment using Bloom's levels and clarified the instructional purpose, blah, blah, blah. So here we go, the lesson outcome. By the end of this lesson, students will confidently perform all three passes of the Charleston and identify one personal tip that helps them decide what to pass. They're going to apply and evaluate. Those are both from Bloom's. Here we go. Warm up, analyze a random pull. Use random pull to help students recognize patterns of strength and analyze tile relationships. I'd probably tweak that. Asking guiding questions like which tiles work together towards a possible category, not a hand. So you want to tweak this. You don't want to just copy and paste it and let it be. You got to massage it, especially for your own teacher's voice, your personality, and what you know of the game as well. What's your first instinct about what's safe to pass? That's a great one right there. This primes analytical thinking before layering on Charleston decision-making. That's fabulous. Okay, next. Or first of all, what do you think about this? What do you think of this so far? And do you use ChatGPT to help you with your lesson planning? If you don't, I recommend it. It really helps. It can be really inspiring. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Focus. Discard planning for offensive and defensive passing. Here we apply and analyze. Introduce the concept of planning passes with intent rather than reacting to tiles. Explain how offensive passes build toward a hand while defensive passes minimize risk to opponents. You like this? You need to use ChatGPT more often. Yes. Yeah, I have found it to be very helpful. Okay, so here we're going to demonstrate an example Charleston with commentary. I call it a mock Charleston, so I would tweak that. Encourage students to verbalize their reasoning for each pass. So they need to talk out loud because they've got observers. And then once you get through this exercise with one person, oh, I'm jumping ahead. Let's keep going. I'm keeping this for flexibility, or I'm passing this to reduce exposure. This moves from understanding what the Charleston is and how and why decisions matter. ChatGPT is free, yes. Okay, then we come down to application. This is where you go from apply to evaluate and create, which is the top level. Create is the top level of Bloom's. Use Charleston modeling skill builder to simulate all three passes. Have students perform a full sequence while thinking aloud about their rationale. And this not only will help them as the individual, but the observers will learn from it as well. This is how the there's exponential learning going on, because the observers, even though they're not driving, they're observing and learning from the experience. And then you're going to move to the next player, who will then drive, and then the others will observe. So you'll have a driver and observers, passengers, I guess you could say. All right, so then after the exercise, prompt for a short peer discussion. What different strategies did you notice? Okay, now that I would save for the reflection. So I would move this bullet down to the reflection. So let's come down here to the reflection. So here, personalize the learning, evaluate to create. With open-ended prompts, consolidate insights, and encourage metacognitive awareness. I would remove that word. I don't even know what that is. Encourage awareness. That's easily said. What felt easy? What felt hard? What is your top takeaway? You could also have them keep a journal. They just threw that in there. Okay, so now I'm going to copy all this, and I'm going to go back to my article, and I'm going to paste it underneath, because I don't want to ruin what I have there. And I'm just going to paste it down here, and then I'll combine it with my original concept, what ChatGPT gave me with my tweaks, and I'll end up with my own work. So I'm going to come back to that, and I'll put it all together. But another thing that I want to do now, just to save time, what I would do is I would come in here and I would combine it with what ChatGPT recommended, what my original vision was, and I would put it all into one again. So it would be a fresh copy of this. Then what I would do is I would take it, and for speed, I'm just going to use this as is. I'm going to copy, or I'm going to go down here, because what ChatGPT is asking me now is, would you like me to build this into a lesson plan template? And the answer is yes. Yes, create a lesson plan template. And they are also asking me if they want me to create a worksheet. And yes, I would love to have a worksheet. So let's see what ChatGPT gives us for a lesson plan and a worksheet. So let's say yes to both. Dana says she bought the Pro and you use it a lot. You take time to educate with articles and documents. It's not always accurate with information, and they often add Chinese mahjong. Yeah, you absolutely need to edit. Edit for accuracy for your version, but also edit for your teacher's voice. Okay, so here's our lesson plan now. Okay, instructor lesson plan for the Charleston. And this turns out to be a 45 to 60 minute class, beginner, intermediate. We're going to understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. That's the entire hierarchy of Bloom's learning. There's our outcome. It gives us the materials that we need. I need to get the random pull skill builders defined in there. Of course, we need the card, and then maybe a worksheet or what have you. Okay, so here we go. There's our lesson plan. Warm up, 10 minutes. There's the objective. Here's the instructions. And then there's even a little transition script. You don't want to use a script. You don't need that. Just use yourself for that. But let's see what they said. Now that you've analyzed a single hand, let's use those same skills to plan our passes with intention. Yeah, I wouldn't use that. Okay, so next we have planning, discard planning for offensive and defensive passing, 15 minutes. There's our objective right here. Then we have our instructions for the instructor there. And then there's a prompt. What one adjustment might you have made if your neighbor is passing tiles you need? I like that. That brings engagement from your observers. That's fantastic. I would keep that. Next, we have the application step. 20 minutes. The objective is there, our instructions, the prompt here. How did your passing choices evolve after seeing others' passes? That's another way to draw in the observers, so they get some engagement as well. And then finally, our step 4 of this 4-corner framework, reflection, personalize the learning, There's our objective, the instructions, and then finally the closure. Every Charleston is a chance to sharpen your instincts. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to make your passing intentional. That's fantastic. And then here's a worksheet from our lovely assistant ChatGPT. We've got the name, date, the lesson goal. Here's the warm-up with some questions, prompts for them to fill out. Which tiles look strong or connected? Which tiles feel weak or out of place? What's one thing you'd be ready to pass right away? Then we have discard planning questions. And then down here, applications, more prompts, reflections, more prompts. Their passing tip, that's basically their takeaway. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add this as a handout. There's one more thing I want to show you. I'm going to put this in Word and I'll make this a handout for you as an example so you can see from start to finish what you can get out of this process. So here, this will be the handout that I'll save for you later. I'll get that all cleaned up. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to take this lesson plan and I'm going to create a syllabus. Create a syllabus for based on, we don't need to paste it, based on the lesson plan. Here's a syllabus for the Charleston lesson. Here's your syllabus now. I want to make sure this is student facing. I forgot to put that in here. Okay, that's a syllabus for a teacher, instructor, or maybe the facility organizer. You could see a student would be overwhelmed by this format. I would not give this to a student. Okay, this would be for maybe this would be for your catalog. I'm going to go ahead and save this as an example of what you can put in your catalog. This would be more of a catalog entry rather than a syllabus. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here. Lesson catalog. We're going to put that in there as an example. Okay, now we're going to go back here. This is what I should have said. Create a student-facing syllabus using the lesson plan. A student-facing syllabus. That's what we wanted. Okay, here we go. So we have in here what it is, American Mahjong Fundamentals. We have the lesson length, so they know how long to commit. They need to know who is this for. This is for beginner, intermediate. So someone who's advanced will not take this class. This would be for beginners and intermediate players. What you'll learn. The Charleston is more than just a passing phase. It's your chance to shape your hand, test your instincts, and make strategic choices that set the tone for the rest of the game. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to. And then they use blooms, action, verbs, takeaways. They're going to walk away with knowledge. Okay, so then now here, I would not give them this. That is not for a student. I would cut that out. Okay, so then we have materials you'll use. I would keep that. Your learning progress during class. This is what you're going to do. I would keep that. After the lesson, that's fantastic. And then a note from the teacher. Wonderful. That I would do. So I would use this as the syllabus, but I would remove this table. That lesson flow, that's for the instructor. That's not for the student. That's overwhelming, I think. So I would not include that. Okay, so that's how I would use blooms, or not blooms. That's how I would use ChatGPT to help me with this four-corner framework. Let me get rid of this out of my clipboard here so we can do the next thing that I wanted to show you, which is how to get to this information. Competencies, where's lesson catalog? A lesson plan, okay. It's kind of like a working session here. Okay, so I'll get all that cleaned up for you so you'll have a handout with everything that we talked about. What I want to show you is how to get to this information for watching replays and things like that. Let's see, I want to put this article to draft really quick because it's a bit messy right now. Actually, I don't want to do that because I want you to see it. So I'm just going to publish it messy for now. We're going a little bit late. Stick with me, we're almost done. Okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here's my website. And what you're going to do to get to the Learning Lab Instructor Edition content is you're going to click on Instructors, and then you're going to go all the way to the bottom and click on Learning Lab. Learning Lab for Instructors is, there's a button right here, Instructor Edition Content. This Learning Lab page tells you about the program. You're welcome to come back and read this, but to get to the content, you're going to click the Instructor Edition content, and it's going to take you to a repository, a wiki style repository of all the show notes for every Learning Lab Instructor Edition. So there's a little blurb up there that tells you about it. It tells you the schedule, which is Thursdays 1 to 2. Join the live stream button. So if you come here, you can join the live stream, or you can go straight to my YouTube channel. You can also join the Facebook group for the Learning Lab if you use Facebook. And also, if you haven't joined the guild yet, I highly recommend that you do for ongoing support and continuing education, and also collaboration, peer support, all those good things. Down here, we have the categories that we focus on: event planning, finance, marketing, systems, self-care, and teaching. Underneath that, you have featured articles, popular on the left, newest in the middle, recently updated on the right. So visit this and see what you've missed. So to find the show that you are looking for, you could either search by keyword, like if I type in _corner, click search, and there it is. Lesson Planning Essentials, the 4-corner plan. And incidentally, there is a date stamp on the end of each one of the show notes in a YYYY month, day, 2025-1030. So one thing you could do instead of keyword search, let's say that, oh, I missed Michelle's episode on the 30th. You could just put in that timestamp, 2025-1030, and it will pull up the show notes for that episode. And it will take you to the article, and that will have a button to watch the episode. You'll click that if you want to watch this video. If you're watching the repost, hello, thank you for watching the videos. And here are our prompts. There are the talking points. Here's the 4-corner framework. And then we have the summary, and following will be the examples with everything that we talked about and went through on ChatGPT. All right, any comments? What did you think about the 4-corner framework? What felt easy for you? Tell me what felt easy for you about this concept, the 4-corner framework. I'm waiting for any comments from our viewers here. And if you're watching the repost, just write your comments in the video description below. I bet you can guess what my next question was. If you don't feel comfortable commenting, oh, here we go. It's going to give you an easy approach in step-by-step manner. Yeah, excellent. That's the purpose, step-by-step. Okay, what is hard for you? What was hard for you? For some of you, it might be using ChatGPT. Incidentally, I am working on a course for ChatGPT, how to use ChatGPT for lesson planning. That's going to be a course for instructors in the guild. It's one of the benefits to joining the guild is access to courses. This particular one will be free because any independent course is free. I do have some courses that have workshops and one-on-one coaching. Those are premium, so they have a cost. But this, how to use ChatGPT for lesson planning, that is going to be a free course for instructors. She's figuring out how to use ChatGPT. Yep, it takes a little time, and you got to train ChatGPT to serve you, to serve the way you think and the way you speak. So it takes time. Okay, and then what are you going to take away with you? Are you going to use this concept or something like it? What is your takeaway for today? I'm using the reflection. I learn. I learn too. I love this framework. Let's see if I can remember it now. Warm up. So basically reframe / warm up. Then topic, application, reflection. Using the process is not going to be as hard as you thought. Yeah. Frame / warm up, topic, application, reflection. That's the framework. You love the title. The Charleston is not just a passing phase. Yeah, that's clever. Hi, Laura. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for the interaction. I love that when we have interaction. That's the whole goal of these episodes, that we work together. Even though I'm the talking head, you're here with me. And incidentally, I can bring people into the broadcast, but not everybody wants to be on camera. So I know we went 15 minutes over today, but sometimes we'll do that. We've got the freedom to do that. And if it went a little long for you, you can always watch the repost when we go long. But the goal is to do 1 hour segments. Maybe if this becomes more in depth, if we have lots of questions and interaction, engagement, maybe I'll make it a 90-minute session. That might work. Thanks, Michelle. You made it very easy to understand. Oh, my pleasure. I hope that you find it helpful for your teaching practice. Join us again next week for another episode. And I like to do 3 topics in 3. So the same category in 3 segments or 3 episodes. So the episodes are going to be on lesson planning. So the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about lesson planning. So this is the first one, and then we're going to do 2 more, and then we'll have another category. I'm thinking operations will be the next 3. So we'll work in 3s, and we'll build this archive, this repository of content that you can come back to and use for your teaching practice. And I hope that you find it helpful. You won't have to reinvent the wheel, and you'll keep your teaching practice fresh, and you'll keep energized in your business. I'll go ahead and sign off then. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing. Click the little gray bell if you do. That way you'll get notification for when I post new videos, and you won't miss an opportunity to learn a new strategy or pick up an insight to the game that could give you an advantage at the table. Between now and the next video, may all your picks be keepers.